Hey everyone, it's Horror Free for All, and I hope you're doing well today. I've decided to pick back up my Carnival horror film review series up again after I promised you all a while ago that I was going to be doing this. And I'm finally ready to start doing reviews of these movies that I watched a few months ago that I'm now rewatching again. Some of them for the second time ever, some of them for a handful of times now that I've watched them, just for posterity and for review purposes. And for today's review, I have a very obscure Syfy Channel original movie from 2009. It was written by Douglas Davis and directed by Sheldon Wilson. The film in question is Carny. Now, this film stars Lou Diamond Phillips, and that was one of the big selling points of me to want to pick this movie up in Big Lots and in Dollar Tree back in the day. As a matter of fact, I used to see this movie in like handfuls in any Big Lots I ever went to, and nobody ever bought this thing. So I'm guessing Big Lots packed them up and shipped them off to Dollar Tree to sell them, and that's where I found my copy for like $1.25, I think, back in the day. And I was happy paying that price of admission into it. And I wanted to check this out because the cover always gravitated me. I'm like, okay, it has a carnival theme setting. You have Lou Diamond Phillips. There's a creature feature aspect to it. I want to see what this movie can do. I did not know that this was a Syfy Channel original movie, or it was a part of this Syfy Channel theme that they had going on called the Man-Eater series, I think, with a bunch of cryptid monsters or just monsters eating mankind kind of thing. I have no fucking interest in watching the other ones because they all look like hot fucking shit. But this one, I was surprisingly shocked by how much I enjoyed it. And I'm saying this as somebody who did not really grow up with the Syfy Channel the way some people did. I did catch reruns back in the day on it, don't get me wrong. I watched Twilight Zone, I watched The Outer Limits. Later on, when stuff like the Sharknado movies came out, or when the Z Nation show came out, during the height of Walking Dead hype, I was checking out both of those when they were releasing. And I don't know if they're still making Sharknado movies, but to me, I always thought the Syfy Channel original movies, the ones I did catch, were pretty much one of two things. They were so boring and so hateable, or I'm just not interested enough just to click off the movie and go find a different channel, or I would sit through the whole movie and just think that it was kind of mid. And there's only a handful of Syfy Channel original movies that I think are outright memorable. Some for the wrong reasons, like the Sharknado films, right? Of course, you're going to remember that. Then you have, of course, any Asylum movie that they've put out, since Asylum has become basically their mainstay studio pumping out films. Like maybe Abraham Lincoln versus Zombies comes to mind, or Titanic 2. Shit like that. You expect to see that with the Syfy Channel. But there is one movie that I remember watching when I was much younger that aired on ABC Family as well that I really loved and enjoyed. And I still do kind of till this day, and it's called The Hollow. And The Hollow has kind of faded into obscurity over the years due to it just being kind of forgotten about. And it's kind of hard to come across on physical media. So knowing that about myself with the Syfy Channel, you would think that I would absolutely hate this movie, but I have to say that I would dare say that this is a hidden gem in terms of straight-to-TV movies made with that very, very low budget going for a lot of these films. I have to say I didn't hate this whatsoever. This is something that you'll probably find on Tubi, deep in the annals of the archives. You might be able to find this on Syfy Channel's app, or maybe if you still have cable, you can find it on their channel on demand or something. I don't know. I have here the DVD copy. You can probably go out to your local Big Lots or even Dollar Tree till this day and find a copy of this if you're that morbidly curious to check it out on physical. But yeah, this movie actually gets a soft recommend for me. Yeah, for a straight-to-TV Syfy Channel original movie, Carnival movie, yeah, it works. It kind of works. It's not going to be like that for everybody, I feel, that watches this thing, but yeah, go check this out if you haven't. You might find a lot of charm in it like I did. Who knows? But let's get into the plot overview without giving too much away, because there is some moving parts in this movie. Now, this film is less than an hour and a half. I think it's like 87 minutes in total. So this movie will fly by if you decide to check it out. The movie starts off with this carnival arriving at this small town, and we get a prologue of sorts with this carnival owner who's played by AC Peterson, and he's working out a deal with this dealer of sorts who is essentially bringing him a attraction that's going to make this guy a lot of money. And The carnival owner is jazzed to see the creature and wants to see if the guy is like actually real about providing the goods. And once they see what this creature is, the carnival owner essentially double crosses the dealer and pretty much kills him. So we know that this guy's bad off the bat. And he has these two lackeys who are now sent to go handle the Jersey Devil, which is the monster of the film. And that's pretty much revealed early on. That's not a spoiler either. And one of them loses an eye trying to handle this thing, and the Jersey Devil essentially almost escapes the carnival, of which the owner has thankfully some tranquilizer darts to kind of put it to sleep and get it changed up in time for this attraction, for this town coming up. Now, there's also some information that we learned right before the title card comes in that the carnival dealer is only going to be holding this creature for a little bit, and then he's going to kind of get out of the business, so it seems, so he can, make money off this Jersey Devil and sell it off to a big guy and kind of get out of doing the carnival hustle and, get out of the business. So he has some ulterior motives going on for after this carnival stay in this town. Well, after the title card comes into play, we meet Lou Diamond Phillips, who is this sheriff of sorts. He is a single man, but everybody in town seems to respect him. Besides a few folks that work in the local church, led by a pastor or preacher of sorts, and the preacher is kind of leading this revolt against the carnival for coming to town because it's rumored that there is a devil creature that is running amok in the carnival, or possibly being used as a sideshow attraction. And they are protesting it because they think that it's immoral and it's a sin, and that it's against God's wish and all this. And this is played up pretty heavily in the plot, so you're going to have to kind of tough through that. But the sheriff kind of assures the protesters that the carnival is nothing but innocent fun, and he goes and checks it out because he hears about a creature that's legitimately in there and wants to make sure that it's not going to be a risk to the town, right? So he goes into the carnival and he meets this fortune teller, I think played by Simone Elise Gerard, and she kind of takes a liking to him, and after meeting him and all of that, along with the carnival owner meeting the sheriff, who's played by AC Peterson, like I said, she kind of gives him, she has this premonition that something bad's going to happen within this carnival, but she can't quite put her finger on it. And then as the sheriff is looking around this carnival, we see that there's a macabre of freaks, so to speak, that the sheriff witnesses. Like there's a guy with two faces that you see back here. Yes, this should be set up front. This is a sci-fi straight-to-TV movie. There is some mix of practical effects, sometimes enhanced by CGI, sometimes it's flat-out CGI. Yeah, you're going to see shit like that in this movie that look really strange. But nonetheless, the town seems to be having fun, right? But unfortunately, what's going to cause this inciting incident of this entire movie is that later that night, once everybody's bought their tickets to come see this Jersey Devil, there's two teenagers who are essentially some miscreants trying to cause some trouble, right? And they're out sitting in the showroom area in the chairs of everybody eating their snacks, popcorn or whatever, and they see this Jersey Devil creature come out of the cage and be put on display, and they think that it's whatever, and they're trying to like start a frenzy and kind of rile up the creature. But in doing so, the creature breaks loose and escapes and starts killing people. And everybody escapes the carnival in a panic. And of course, the two teenagers are now being targeted by the Jersey Devil for kind of invoking its wrath. And they try to run off into the middle of the woods and hide out in, I guess, this hunting lodge of area. But the Jersey Devil, of course, follows them there. And the two boys get separated, trying to escape there when the Jersey Devil tries to come into the lodge and attack them. And one of them pretty much may or may not bite the dust nearby a bridge, while the other one kind of hides out nearby and freaks out of what to do after being kind of mangled up a little bit. Well, once morning breaks, the boy, he runs out to the street and he comes across his mother who's driving by looking for him. And they have a reunion, but the Jersey Devil's not finished with this boy. And there's a really over-the-top scene with the boy possibly getting taken out of the van and taken care of on top of his mom's car in a very over-the-top fashion, like I said. But nonetheless, because the carnival kind of went to shit the night before, the sheriff is now tasked with trying to figure out what exactly escaped, and he's grilling this carnival owner, and so is the preacher who was leading the charge on the protests early on in the movie. And the preacher pretty much tells the sheriff that the devil is loose and that we need to be the purveyors of God and take care of this creature, blah 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 blah, and that these carnival people are evil. And the carnival guy's like, look, I take responsibility for this. And he also realizes that his money's on the line if he doesn't get this thing back. He's like, I got all the ammunition I need. I'm going to take my men and we're going to track down this devil. Well, the sheriff and the carnival people, like the two toadies and the owner, they go out into the woods to try to hunt down this devil when they get a lead that two boys were found dead there. And the carnival owner gets this bright idea that the Jersey Devil perhaps has a bloodlust. And in order to get it to come to them, they need to set out some bait. So we see potentially some of his lackeys start biting the dust. We see like how corrupt this man is and just how into deep he is with this Jersey Devil thing. So they lay out the bait, and the Jersey Devil, of course, comes and tries to bite it. And in doing so, it attracts the Jersey Devil again. Now, the sheriff has built up some police force to kind of come help him combat this thing. We may or may not see some of the police force die off here in this battle of sorts, so to speak. But it seems to be that what the carnival owner has tried to do has only pissed it off even further. And even after he manages to subdue it for a little bit, it's not going to work long term, right? So the sheriff gets the bright idea to go back to the town and tell everybody that they need to evacuate, right? But unbeknownst to most other people, they're still going to the carnival and pretending like this accident never happened. Now, that's some disbelief you got to kind of have to put at the door. But there are still carnival workers around the area, and the sheriff wants to tell the carnival workers, hey, you guys need to pack up and leave. But unbeknownst to him, somehow the Jersey Devil again escapes and goes back to the carnival and starts killing off more people in semi-brutal fashion, some on-screen, some off-screen. Some more pedestrians may or may not bite the dust. And the sheriff realizes that they're in pretty much deep shit water. And they go to the carnival owner and saying, okay, what exactly is this thing? And the carnival owner kind of spills the beans a little bit on himself, and the sheriff puts two and two together that this guy is responsible for all these deaths and all this carnage. So he decides that he's going to arrest him and take him to jail for doing what he did. And upon doing so, the town pastor or preacher has decided to go into the jail area because I don't want to give too much away, but something happens to the sheriff character that kind of takes him out of the equation for a little bit. So the pastor decides to go do something in particular to the carnival owner that's really fucked up and sadistic, I should say, and essentially just lets the Jersey Devil possibly have him. And then, of course, we see what's going to happen to the carnival owner. We see what's going to happen to the preacher in question involving the devil. And this builds up to the climax of the story, where it's essentially down to the fortune teller woman who the sheriff, played by Lou Diamond Phillips, has had a romantic interest in the whole movie. And it's pretty much him versus the creature, along with some other carnival workers and some bystanders who happen to have weapons that want this creature out of the town. And there's one last, climactic finish, and we may or may not see a tragic end for Lou Diamond Phillips' character. And there might be an ambiguous ending involved everybody else in question who's remaining by the end of the film. And that's essentially what you're going to expect out of this movie, Carny. Now, Carny it's pretty much a downer movie. There's nothing that really starts to look up for any character in the movie. And I will say this up front about it. I actually did not hate the story for this movie. Unlike most other Sci-Fi Channel movies, I think the only other time I've actually been genuinely interested in a plot of a Sci-Fi Channel movie was watching The Hollow. This movie possibly is the second in that totem for me. I was actually pretty enthralled and engaged with the story. I wanted to know more about the carnival owner and more of the backstory of why he got or why he's after the Jersey Devil. And while I don't feel like all the questions are answered there, I feel like since he's so evil up front in the beginning of the movie, the story about him trying to cover his tracks and then catching this thing and letting the town go into turmoil over this because of his own doing, there's something, I don't know, intriguing about it. And I honestly have to say this movie is very, very, very held up by the acting performances. You wouldn't think that the acting performances in this movie are anything to write home about, which most of them aren't, but the acting performances in this movie, for the most part, really do help sell some of these characters. And while they're not the most developed characters ever, I would honestly go out of my way to say that Lou Diamond Phillips in particular, the main character and the hero of the movie, is super underdeveloped. The side characters get a lot of focus and attention, and while we don't know shit about them, they have good dynamics in the situation, and we get to see a lot of their personality come through, given the hecticness of the plot itself. And I don't know, sometimes you don't have to be a very exposition and character developing rich story to be enthralling with how characters interact. Sometimes you just gotta have that chemistry or you don't. And this movie surprisingly has a lot of chemistry going for it. So I thought that was really well done there. I think the setting for a low budget Sci-Fi Channel movie was pretty good for this. I was not expecting the carnival to be as good as it was. I was expecting it to be mostly CGI, if I'm being honest. But there was a lot of actual set pieces used. There was a legitimate Ferris wheel. There was some legitimate tent setup. There was some legitimate, practical effect makeup put onto some carnival freaks. Some were CGI enhanced, but it felt like a carnival in a town. I don't know what else to say. It felt believable. And some of the gore and the practical effects that we do see in the movie was pretty well done. I have to say, I didn't hate it. Even though a lot of the stuff was off screen and a lot of the stuff was kind of panned in and panned out very quickly, I guess, to avoid being too graphic, because this is a made-for-TV movie after all. But I was still kind of impressed on that. Even the CGI, Jersey Devil specifically, while he is openly CGI'd the whole movie, and some people can find an issue with that, trust me, I get it. I don't hate it. I really don't hate it. I don't think it looks that bad. Like, it looks like what the Jersey Devil is described in Legends. It's a smaller creature with smaller wings, but a huge bat-like face and stuff like that. I mean, pretty much what you see on the cover is kind of what you get in the movie. And the creature is this unstoppable force in the plot. And to be honest, whenever he is around, you pretty much know that people are going to die. So there is some level of tension to be had with the character. And yeah, while he's not particularly scary because he's so CGI'd and it's low budget CGI at that, I think there's a lot of fun things they do with the creature in the movie, especially the final climax is so over the top. And it's kind of heart-wrenching to see what happens to the main character of the story. But then again, it goes to show you that this creature has some good aspects about him. And he's a force to be reckoned with. And that's all you really need in a creature feature. You just got to buy into the fact that the monster is an unstoppable force. And then one last positive I think I can give this movie is some of the humor really landing. Like, this movie kind of leaned into what it was, I should say. And it didn't apologize for it. It knew it was a B movie, and it tried to be over the top when it could. And like I said, I was not expecting stuff like the teenagers getting chased by the Jersey Devil, and especially the death involving the mom's car. I laughed out loud with that scene, and I think most people would when you watch it. And there's some moments like that kind of trickled into this movie that make you laugh, and it's because the movie knows what it is. And I have to say that was probably one of the more refreshing things about it, because if it took itself a little too seriously, then I probably would not have seen the charm in it as I did with this. So yeah, there's a lot of positives I have here with Carny. Now, let's get the big eyesore, big issues with the movie out the way, because they're obviously here. The budget is low budget as shit. That goes to the music, which is generic. That goes to the directing ability, which is serviceable but not spectacular. That goes to the CGI, which is obviously fucking cheap as hell. The CGI enhancements on some of these practical effects kind of take away from it and looks really goofy. That's there. Yes, the acting in this movie is pretty much well done for the most part, but these are actors that can never make it in an actual Hollywood movie. No offense. Lou Diamond Phillips is easily the biggest mainstay in here, maybe even A.C. Peterson to a degree, but given the material they were given, right, there are some scenes that look kind of corny, kind of cheesy because of the budget, like I said. There's a particular eye gouging scene in the beginning of the movie that kind of comes off cringy because they don't have the budget to pull it off all on screen, and they also don't have the ratings they can actually go with doing a lot of this on screen. So there's a lot of this on and off, barely on screen stuff about the movie that gets kind of irritating as well. And then, yeah, you know, the movie does kind of feel a bit aimless in its direction. It's not the most riveting story ever. It's essentially like the carnival comes to town and the Jersey Devil escapes, and then it's pretty much a free-for-all from there to try to kill the creature. There's not a lot of story here. The characters, they're very underdeveloped either way you look at it. It is kind of a negative at the same time, even though I do think that the acting and stuff helped bring out the characters, and they still were intriguing for the most part of the movie. They're not that enthralling, and especially with the sheriff character, who is probably the main reason why a lot of people tune into this movie, because he's played by Lou Diamond Phillips. It's kind of shocking how little screen time he actually does have in the movie compared to all the other side characters that we see pretty much eat up the runtime, which I was kind of disappointed with at the same time. And yeah, I mean, those are huge ones. I mean, they take off a hefty amount for this movie, don't get me wrong. And it's that sci-fi level cheese. The movie is almost too mean-spirited and almost too much of a downer to be, you know, considered like, you know, a mainstream horror film. But I will say this, you know, given all those positives and negatives aside, if this film had a second life, potentially in the late 2000s, maybe they could have taken this idea, taken it to Lionsgate or something, and this could have been one of those 3D horror films in the theater type of experiences in the late 2000s. I totally can buy that a Jersey Devil creature feature carnival, you know, proto-slasher, you know, monster film probably would have been something that a studio would have leaned with back in the day if they had the 3D horror gimmick. And like I said, if it had a second life, I think Carny could have definitely fit that bill during that time. But I digress. So all in all, Carny, yeah, it has a lot of problems, and they're pretty evident ones. I don't really need to beat it up too bad here. But for a Syfy Channel movie, I surprisingly enjoyed myself with it. I'd probably give this film, realistically, maybe like a 3 out of 5 stars. It's a decent movie. It's pretty decent. Yeah, some people might be like, you would watch this over some theatrical movies that you said you've hated in the past? Absolutely. I think this movie does have a little bit of heart to it. It does make me chuckle. It has its moments to it. Would I revisit it every year when I'm in the mood for a carnival horror film? Probably not. It's not going to be my first choice. Probably not even my second or third. But this is definitely a movie that if I ever find myself wanting to watch it, I'll probably sit down and enjoy myself every time I do watch it. And that's saying a lot. That is saying a lot. And I do think that people should go check this movie out just to have fun with it. This is definitely one of those turn your brain off movies and just enjoy the ride kind of experiences, if I've ever seen one. So yeah, that's my thoughts on Carny from 2009. Let me know down in the comment section if you've seen this movie before. Do you love this? Do you hate this? I'm dying to know. And I'll see you next time.